All right, I'd like to call this meeting officially to order. Ms. Sanchez, if you could please call the roll.
Sure. Maria de Los Angeles Osterman, Justin Allen,
Here.
Eduardo Quiroga, Melissa Amici,
Here.
Cristina Dávila,
Here.
Teresa Fonseca, Juan Herrera, Mark Gonzalez,
Here.
and Michelle Romani.
Here.
For the record, Madam Chair, you do have quorum.
Thank you. We will now move on to the approval of the minutes for the meeting of July 12th, 2018.
Do we happen to have an update on the agenda item that was tabled last time around? Ms. Sanchez?
I'm sorry?
Do we have an update on the agenda item that was tabled at the last meeting?
The sign?
It was tabled, time uncertain,
Okay.
which means when the applicant is ready, they will come back.
So we haven't received any word on
No.
that? Thank you.
Okay, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here, so.
And it just texts that she's stuck in trouble. Because of the. Did we get a motion to?
No, we don't have a motion.
I got it here.
All right, we're just waiting for Mr. Gonzalez to look at the minutes.
I looked at them prior to the meeting, so.
Okay. Okay,
No, it's the way.
is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes of July 12th, 2008. Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All those vote aye, those opposed vote no.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries and the minutes are approved. We will now move on to citizen comments.
We don't have any citizen comments.
Okay, all right. And now we will move on to public hearing and consideration of the following. New improvements to existing structure, site improvements, partial demolition, Building A and Building B, no work to be done at Building C. Location, all Block 10 Western Division, commonly known as 214 San Bernardo Avenue. Property owner, Diocese of Laredo, Bishop James A. Tamayo, owner applicant. Representative, Hickey Peña Architects, Frank Architects Incorporated. Historic District, San Agustin de Laredo. Historic District, via San Agustin de Laredo. National Register of Historic Places. Public hearing number HDLB 15-2018. Do I have a motion to open up public hearing HDLB 15-2018?
Motion.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Just for the record, who did the second? Okay. Vote aye or vote no?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. And I turn over the floor to our architectural team.
So, does this work or is it all? Here. So, my name is Mario Peña with Hickey Peña Architects, for the record.
Frank Ranofsky with Frank Architects.
And let me figure this out here. Got it. So as you can see from your packet, we're here to get approval for several items that impact the scope of this board. as they are pertain to the exterior of the historic structure of the Cathedral of San Agustin and the adjacent building, what we're calling the parish center, what the diocese has now deemed calling the parish center. It's the old parochial school. That is how it's designated in the Texas Registry. And so we'll take you through the particular items, but before I begin, let me just frame this by saying that these are all components that are part of a master plan that we presented here about a year ago. And I'm not sure exactly when we were here, but we presented the entire scope of the master plan here. So now these are the particular components that pertain to this board. And so I'll try to interject some of the reasoning why these items are necessary for the completion of the overall master plan, which is a rehabilitation and a restoration of the building as a whole. And as you know, the Diocese of Laredo is undergoing a capital campaign to get this historic project going, and construction is set to begin at the beginning of November. We are in negotiations with a construction manager at risk who has been helping us with the technical aspects of some of the construction elements these last few months, and then they're set to begin, like I said, in construction in November. All right. So here, just a quick map of the location. We all know where this is.
Yes.
All right. Historic Plaza. Just a quick note, and I'll let Frank elaborate more on this, but we have been approved for the tax credit program, the preliminary approval, the Part A. Frank, do you have?
Yes, so, yeah, we're really happy about that. We submitted this project to the Texas Historic Commission to be considered eligible for the State Historic Tax Credit Program. It's a three-part process. Part A, we've completed, which designates it is eligible. We are, and the way that works is we can bring back 25% of the approved costs for rehab and restoration. Any historical significance, those are applied, and that's the Part A, that's been approved. We're currently in the Part B portion of it, where we've submitted all of our drawings for review, and they are now in the process of kind of checking off what is eligible. So we're in that process. It runs concurrent with the construction, so we're right on target with that as well. And then the Part C is once everything's complete and documented, that's when we submit the last part of the process. So we're right in the middle of that process as we speak.
And then also to note, because this process is underway, and because of the status of the cathedral with the state, we have been interfacing every step of the way with all of the design approaches that we've taken with THC, and then we've got some approvals from them here to show you for some of our approaches and our necessities for the project. All right. So this first one here is just, it's almost maintenance, but we are working with a new consistent color throughout the years. The fencing around the cathedral that you see noted here all the way around both buildings in red, all right, is slated to be repainted, all right, and we've submitted a paint color for you to consider. There's also a blue portion of the fence that's higher, and so we're asking for you to approve an optional second color for that. We need to do some studies on site, painting a good portion of it to see how that's gonna interact with the streets, the much taller fence. So we fear that if we paint it dark, right now it's painted white, by the way, that area, that one right there, it's a light color. So we fear if we paint it dark, it's gonna have an adverse effect to the look of that corner. So we have for consistency's sake, we're planning on attempting the color in dark, but if we feel like it's too imposing on that or too character changing, then we're gonna go to the white that exists now.
That taller fence, is that at the rectory?
It's behind the rectory, correct.
It's behind the rectory.
Yeah, it encloses the carport that exists there for service access.
It faces San Bernardo and then a little bit of Grant Street as it turns the corner west to Grant.
Right.
It's
So
not
it's the blue shaded one, blue outline portion
Okay,
there on the map. Yeah.
it's not the electronic one,
It is.
it is the electronic one,
Mhm.
okay.
So the electronic one is lower, which is, and it's white, but it's continuous with a much taller portion that goes all the way to the roof deck of that carport around the corner. So again, these are just pictures of the colors, some of the white color, some of the darker color, just so you can see the swatch that you all have with the fence.
Now, that dark color, is that the one, because I know that there are some, for lack of a better word, black fencing in
Sure.
front of the school.
Yes.
So is that similar to, what the old school has in front of it?
Well, it is similar, but this is, can I give you this? Have you all seen the color
Yeah.
itself? Do you have the swatches?
Yes.
Our
Yeah, we have
packets
it.
are color.
We have it right there.
So this color is actually a color that has been previously approved by this board for
Okay.
several fences around downtown. And we got it from there. Again, the color itself appears downtown in fencing that is similar to this.
Yeah, I wanna look at it.
And we felt that a dark black color would be too stark, it would stand out too much, so we wanted to soften it. We think this color is consistent with the typical patina that you see, for example, in the restored windows, the leading of the restored windows. There's a little bit of a little more of a matted gray to it, so that's why we selected that color. We think it's consistent with the look,
And
the
this is
historic look of the
going
building.
to cover the whole campus.
So it covers. Sure. It's basically just the parking lot coming all the way around, and there's portions of it on top of the masonry fence around the west side and the north side of the parish center.
Mhm.
And then again, this portion which is behind the rectory.
Okay, so then everything in that perimeter is gonna be the same color.
Yes, obviously, except not the plaza wall. There's a
Right.
wall that is all masonry that faces the plaza. That won't.
But I mean the wrought iron,
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
thank you.
Everything that is wrought iron would have the same color, with the exception of that portion that we mentioned. All right, so the next part, are there any questions about that one?
Do you foresee well, like you said, you're gonna try the dark color first, and then if not, just switch to, so we're kind of approving both here?
Yeah, we're asking for.
We're asking for approval for both,
Okay.
or for either, I guess.
For either,
Both
right.
either, yeah. All right, so this next one is fairly straightforward. There are some mechanical units that were placed sometime in the past. We know that it's later than 1955 when all these units were installed. And obviously they've been replaced along the way through several, maintenance campaigns. But there are mechanical units scattered throughout the alley between the parish center and the St. Augustine Cathedral. And there's one unit on the south side of the St. Augustine Cathedral. And that's that portion. That's this one marked here. And these are the compressor units for the HVAC that's in the cathedral. Those are an issue because they generate the most amount of noise coming from the outside, which then deters the spoken quality of a mass. And so our strategy here was to remove as much of that to mitigate the sound intrusion from all of the mechanical systems. So this is part of an overall plan to remove mechanical units from around the building. There's also, I think, a very nice visual benefit to removing them. Obviously, these are modern elements that weren't there in 1877, but the noise factor is really significant. And so our strategy is to move all of the mechanical tonnage on the exterior off-site. Okay, so they're not being replaced here on-site. They're being replaced off-site at a parking lot owned by the diocese, right in a corner. If you all are familiar with the property that's just east of this, across the street, in that corner, we would be putting a chiller system and it's one unit that is sized to take care of all of the cooling needs for both the cathedral and the parish center. So, go
So
ahead.
the parking lot, that space is it across the street from, is it that parking lot that is across the street from the old school?
From the plasma center.
From the where? Oh, from the plasma center.
Back here, it's between the cathedral and the Antigua.
Mm-hmm, okay.
It's right next to my museum.
Yeah. It's by the, yeah, it's on the plasma. So it would be very far away from this most significant, historical structure, which I think it does it well, really to keep it away from that. And efficiency-wise and the way we can now size it so that when the Paris Center eventually hooks up to the same unit, it could take the same benefits, right? And we would be able to remove the compressor units that are feeding the Paris Center. So we'd be free of compressor units all the way around both of these buildings.
Okay. I know that you said that Building C was not going to be affected, but will the rectory also make use of that, or that it has its own?
It has its own system,
Okay.
and we didn't see the benefit to using it. It's new enough,
Okay.
and it's fairly well resolved. As you know, in 2000, it underwent the restoration after the fire. And so a lot of these more modern resolutions to the HVAC system, they've been resolved already from a historical standpoint. In these two buildings, that hasn't happened,
Okay.
right? So it's now bringing in a compatible type of system to allow for a more historical resolution and the preservation of the historical character on the interior of the building. Because the HVAC units, I think, is hindrance to that. Just pictures of the units that are going to be removed. Okay. Okay, so this is a portion of, again, the mechanical units that will no longer be used, okay, are housed in a modern mechanical room that was built over the sacristy. The sacristy was built circa, we dated it from between 1948 and 53, when that expansion of the sacristy and the sanctuary was constructed. And then after that, a mechanical room was built over the northeast end, covering a historic window behind the altar. And so now that historic window has a fluorescent light inside that attic, so to simulate the light from the sun, right? So we have the opportunity now with these new systems we're installing to eliminate that completely, and to bring that east portion of the facade back to that campaign that happened in '53, where they expanded the sacristy, and prior to the building of that. So here's a picture of it. So this is the portion of the building that was added when the sacristy was added.
Mm-hmm.
There's a duct that we all don't like going around, right, the back of the cathedral, around the sanctuary, taller volume of the building. And then these are walls that were built over, right, the more historic walls of the sacristy.
Mhm.
So as you can see, we've outlined here in blue where we're removing the new and we're keeping the old. And we're reconstructing some of these caps to match the ones on the other side.
I have a question. I know at the beginning of your presentation, you discussed working with THC.
Correct.
I understand that THC has already given the green light to, and I don't want to jump too far ahead of your presentation, but to some aspects of what you are proposing here before us.
Correct.
But have they, and I realize that, you're talking about something that was added in '53, but has THC looked at the proposed demolition of that mechanical room?
Of this modern mechanical room?
Yes.
They have looked at the entire project. Okay, they reviewed it and they have had no comment on this particular one. We haven't gone and specifically pinpointed that question to them.
Mhm.
Okay, as far as we knew, the order in which we approach THC and we approach this board, there's been different approaches to that, like which comes first. Okay, so what I could tell you is our conversation about the whole thing is ongoing, and this will come up here soon, but going up to this board and having you consider that, I think is independent of THC for the most part. But so you know, they have seen and been involved in the entire design of this. They have all our plans, and we've had discussions
Okay.
about all of the
I-
approaches.
I do want to add one thing though, but we did deem the historical period of significance. And so, I mean, basically, that kind of becomes the ground rule of the restoration preservation project. And since this is modern work, it was added past that point. I mean, it would be inconsistent to leave it on there or to, I mean,
It serves no other purpose, right? It's just all mechanics that's gonna be,
it's all modern air conditioning that actually was never intended to be the
Right.
way it was. It was added in the fifties. Again, by putting in the chiller yard, I mean, it allows us to remove ducts not only outside the building, but inside the building as well, so that we can really get a truer restoration.
right,
Um,
it'll allow
So
you
we're-
to see the church more.
That's-
Right.
The original intention, absolutely. And not to mention the aesthetics of all those
And this-
compressors outside.
Right.
They're littering that whole alleyway, the south. I mean, it really cleans up and it, you know, provides
Well, and I think
a
this
better
one is
restoration.
particularly
Yeah,
troublesome,
yeah.
Yeah.
and inconsistent.
The alleyway, is it secured by a gate right now, or that's gonna be secured with a proposed fence that y'all wanna?
It is secured now.
It's secured now?
I mean, really, realistically, this intervention here was not even an architectural one, it was an engineering one. I mean, it was like, okay, we gotta put these units up here, now we have to enclose a room. So it was never intended
Yeah.
to, you know, follow, I mean, I guess they did the best they could back then, but, I mean, we're gonna be pure and true to the cathedral by taking it away.
Right.
No, I understand,
Sure.
but, I guess from my review, there was no approval, I mean, there was approval for, most of what you're proposing here before us, but, there was not any approval for the demolition of the mechanical room based on research.
Well, I know that, not particularly with this project, but multiple projects that we've worked on with the Texas Historic Commission, they really do like to rely on you all.
Right,
They prefer for it to come from the local jurisdiction. They don't like to impose or be, you know, contradict what you all are looking at and feeling. But that's why we're giving you our methodology to why we came to these conclusions, and I think we have them backed up.
And again, this one is, again, the backup for us is
no,
that
but
they
we
are,
restore your
they are
respect to
aware
certain
and
period.
in line with the
Means
nineteen
that
fifty-three
so-
spirit of
Right,
significance.
the historical.
And this is
period, yeah.
just a logical step to get there, so
Right.
we feel like, do we have it in writing that they say, you know, it's okay to remove this? No, but they said it's okay to go back to nineteen fifty-three, and that's what we're doing. So I see it as an approval. So, okay. Or it's almost like a prerequisite for a request that they've already approved, right, to go back to nineteen fifty-three.
I understand, it's just, like I said, with research done, THC said that they were not aware of the demolition of the mechanical room.
Got it, okay, I understand. Then, then we're specifically aware of that.
Mhm.
Understood. Accessible route to cathedral and public restrooms. All right, so this is one that was, again, because we didn't feel like this was one that was going back specifically to 1953, we asked a specific question to THC at this moment. Not to say that our conversations, like I said earlier, are over with THC, obviously not. But we did feel like we should ask this to make sure we're going in that direction, and they agreed. So there is we have planned accessible restrooms. Where they actually exist now, but we're making them larger. Right now, there's only 2 single compartment restrooms that are right there inside the parish hall with access to this alleyway. It's not ADA compliant. The canopy that's on there is a makeshift canopy that I'm not aware that it was approved at any point here. So bathrooms are here, and the way to access them through a safety zone, which is this alleyway, right? The diocese was very concerned with people having to go, especially if it's kids that need to go to the restroom on their own, then to come out into the exterior and to have exposure to the rest of the area that isn't within the confines of the facility. It was important to make sure that this gate was secure, this makes it secure. So now we have a secure on-premises courtyard, so that our access path from the proposed door coming out of what is now the confessional on the north side.
Yeah.
Right? Then we use that path to go and access the restrooms back here.
Yeah, because right now, the only access to the restroom is, the, door that's closest,
On the east side.
yeah, on the east
Correct.
side.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, that's the only access to that.
Yeah, and THC did approve, that and the canopy and those portions.
Which is what's coming up next.
Yeah.
Exactly. So this is where this is the alleyway between the two buildings. As you can see in red on that left picture, we have the outline of where the door would be installed. All right. The window that is there now is a stained glass window, which will be salvaged and displayed in a museum that is set or planned to be constructed in the parish center in the future. On the right, you see our precedents for the door design. These doors are found again on the same side on the north and west side of the cathedral. These are those auxiliary exits. So we're using this to create a restoration of that, but as a single door for that door on the way. So this is
then
that design for that.
all the doors will match.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, and I understand that even those windows date back to 53. Those three windows.
Those three, some of them, we've been able to specifically note that they date back, not specifically to 53,
Mhm.
but definitely prior to the expansion of that altar. Because we believe that there were two construction campaigns there.
Okay.
One in the 30s and one in the 50s. Accessible route to the cathedral, again, we're just talking about the walkways and platforms that are ADA compliant to get you into the restroom. And the canopies that give you some cover. These are freestanding canopies. This was a question we got from THC. Are they freestanding? The answer is yes, they're freestanding. And when do they touch the building? They touch the building only at the entrances and exits, and they were okay with that solution.
Yeah.
All right, this is a section. I'm sorry you can't see it clearly here. The computer isn't cooperating, but just a picture of the wood platform that takes you there, and then a canopy. And there's a little bit of a rendering. So this is the church, that's the school building, and so then we have the system of canopies. We do have some decorative pipes that hold up a very simple canopy. So we think it's complementary to the design of the cathedral.
It's metal.
It's metal pipe with decorative collars all the way through. And it's the top is a metal substructure or superstructure, and it's got wood 2x4 stained wood decking with a metal roof on top, and then gutters on each side. So it's a very light design canopy. We want it to be as least obtrusive as possible and impactful as possible. All right. Again, this is just a letter from THC with the approval of this approach for the design. The next couple of items are for the parish center. As you may know, part of the construction progress is going to halt the ability for the diocese to have masses at the cathedral. And so we're using the parish center as a temporary worship space. And we've been having to make several adjustments and modifications to the building to prepare it for this. The HVAC units were inside the main auditorium, making a whole hell of a lot of noise. Again, we have a problem with the noise, no one can hear the service going on. We did an analysis, kind of what we did in the church, where we figured out what the long-range needs of that building was, to make sure that any temporary, quote-unquote temporary, I should call them short-term, modifications to prepare it for this place to be a worship center, were in line with the eventual expenses and modifications to restore the building as a whole. Right. So that includes a lot of hiding of ducts all over the building, so we can then expose the tin ceilings, for example. There's a lot of work there to restore this. I think fairly well. It was very successful. The HVAC system is a very big challenge. A lot of these places, they have those exposed ducts, or you see an acoustical ceiling tile to try to hide those ducts, and then you look behind them and you see these gorgeous tin ceilings that are covered all over the building. So we're doing a lot of mechanical work in this building to be able to expose and restore all those ceilings in the building. But anyway, part of making this work is access, ADA access to the building. There's a ramp there now that doesn't have the correct slope to be an actual ADA ramp, so we're replacing it with just a simple ADA ramp here at the front of the building. Then, upon having several meetings with the fire department to see how egress would be taken care of, one of their concerns on the exterior, we've taken care of a lot of their concerns on the interior. One of their concerns on the exterior is that none of these doors to get out have landings. So it's very dangerous to just get out and step right onto the first step down. So it's a hazard as people are trying to get out during an emergency or a fire. So we're adding these landings on these egress doors throughout. All right, this is just the location where they were. There is one landing that we wanted you all to consider, because, and I'll go back and forth from that. This landing here has two mechanical yard walls on either side. Can you go back to the drawing, to the picture? Actually, go forward, sorry. Forward. And one more. There we go. Here. So you've got these two walls flanking this stairway. To make the landings happen, we're having to bring these stairs out. And so this gate gets in the way to get into the mechanical yard, which, by the way, the mechanical yard is not in use anymore. But the gate's there. So what we're proposing to do is to continue this wall all the way across, so it looks just like this, and then adding this fence right there where the gate was, and to put the gate on the opposite side of that, just to have access to that space. It's for cleaning, because there's no, it's cleaning of there's some storm drains there that needs to be cleaned out. So basically that door that was here would just go here on this side. Same condition, just on the opposite side of the building. On the opposite side of the mechanical. Okay, so that's the change. That's that. On the left is the ramp that exists now, and it's obviously not compliant.
Non-compliant.
Yeah. Yeah, everything there looks like a piecemeal.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's our presentation. It's here to answer any other questions you might have.
So then the primary, going back to the addition of the door, then the primary exit for using the restroom facilities will now be that door.
Correct.
Okay.
Because the other door has, it really conflicts with the mass if people continue to go out that
Yeah.
door in the front.
Yeah. That's always been a problem.
So how long do you all foresee the cathedral being closed for?
18 months.
18 months. So in that time being, it'll be the parish hall next door.
Correct.
I'd hate to be a bride having scheduled for a wedding.
Well, the parish, the diocese has alerted everybody, and they've taken lists of, they've postponed weddings, and they've told people it's not available for them. And so
Are
pull
there
the
any,
Band-Aid off
Yeah.
on that.
are there any questions from everybody?
No.
The only suggestion that I would make, because on the whole, it is progress. My only concern, and I realize that, I mean, it's just me, but I don't feel comfortable, even though, yes, it was something added during the 50s, but demolishing something without having THC oversight, because unlike a lot of the buildings that we look at, this building is probably the only one with a medallion on it. So THC does have direct oversight there. And so, I'm wondering if we can, when we vote on this, like I said, this is just me.
I'm sorry to interrupt, I don't know, let me know when I can comment again on that, because I do have a comment on the process.
Okay, if we can take the items, individually and vote on them.
I personally have no problem with demolishing that building. As somebody that does restoration projects, I know that they do focus on a time period, and you want to get closest to that time period as possible. At the end of the day, I think if the THC really has a problem, then we can, they'll stop it. I don't foresee that happening. I'm going through a restoration project myself, and I know that they pick a timeline specifically to that. And you need to get as close to that point in time as possible. So I think that I have no problems with the demolition of that building if it was, built past the point of, postdates that.
Yeah, I agree with Christina. I think it's incumbent upon us as a board to help keep this project moving, and with that statement from THC that we have this time period, and that's what we're working with, then I don't see where that becomes an issue. I mean, you can look at it and see that it doesn't belong.
I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if they do have a problem with it, then they'll stop it. But from my experience, I don't think that they will.
Okay, because, like I said in my research, we do have a new architect, assigned to Webb County. And, they weren't aware of the demolition. That was not,
The Sarah, the previous liaison, was aware of it.
but there was no documentation that it was
Right,
approved.
right. Like I said, of that particular, action, which is just the consistent next action to fulfilling the, restoring it to a particular period.
Mhm.
Right.
Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I agree with your concern about THC, but I think we need progress, and I think, how the plans were presented to us, I think it would be good for that to be demolished. The only concern I have is like you said, I don't know, we have approval from them. So I don't know if we table this item, how long.
Well, we
Will
would
it
ask that
hinder
you,
the progress?
approve it contingent on THC being okay with it.
That
you
would
can
be a
do.
good compromise.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion to close our public hearing?
Motion.
Okay, and a second?
A second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor vote aye, all those opposed vote no. Aye. The motion carries. Now, is there a motion to approve? If I can just get this cursor moving. The new improvements to existing structure for, the San Agustin Cathedral Complex, buildings A and B. Is there a motion on the table?
So moved.
Okay, who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, is there a second?
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
And this is, I'm sorry, let me restate that motion, in light of what, Mr. Peña had offered. Is there a motion to approve new improvements to existing structure to the San Agustin Cathedral Complex, buildings A and B, with contingency on approval of THC for the demolition of the mechanical room?
So moved.
Okay, actually, who made it first? Okay, and I would consider you a second?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, all those in favor vote aye?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. We are now at 6:19. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that's a wrap for September. Meeting adjourned.